Has it really been 3 years since Set Point first went live? Indeed it has. What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. And as always, we have ourselves a jam-packed show as we have a guest. Who is this guest? Well, if you paid attention to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show yesterday, you know who it is. Or if you've been on Twitter, you know who it is. But we have some AVP to recap. My guest and I will be talking some 3C2A women's volleyball, as that's basically junior college women's volleyball in California. But we have a lot to get into when it comes to NCAA women's volleyball Week 5 recap. And I'll also be discussing a match that I went to this past weekend, as that was basically a barn burner between UC Irivine and UC Santa Barbara. And we also have Week 6 to get into, and I have a little bit of reflecting to do when it comes to Set Point, because this is the 3-year anniversary. So hand me a volleyball, set up the net, as I'm about to serve you up some volleyball action here on Set Point. This is Taylor Rodriguez bringing you the 3-year anniversary of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Set Point. I hope you all are having a great Friday afternoon, Friday morning, Friday evening, Friday wherever you are listening from. Either way, you have tuned in to episode 161 of Set Point, aka the 3-year anniversary special. Without any further delay, let's get into it. But first and foremost, we have a guest today. She is the head coach of Chaffey Women's Volleyball in her first year, and she's doing a top-notch job. She's a former Mount San Jacinto and Cal State LA standout, and she is an all-around really down-to-earth person. Ladies and gentlemen, welcoming the one, the only, Miss Taylor Kushner. How you doing, Taylor?
Hi, thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. Thank you for taking time out of your day. Thank you for coming on the 3-year anniversary special of Set Point. I know how busy you are, so without any further delay, let's get on into the interview. But first and foremost, we have just a little disclaimer. These are the thoughts and opinions of myself, Teran Rodriguez, and Taylor Kushner, and then not the thoughts and opinions of Chaffey College, IE Sports Radio, or any third or fourth party organizations. The disclaimer is down below in the description. As we welcome Larry B in the chat room, he welcomes you to the show as well, and he's actually in your neck of the woods near Rancho Cucamonga in the Inland Empire. But either way, yeah. But either way, the floor is all yours, Taylor. I've rambled on too much. The floor is yours. Tell everyone who you are and what your backstory is in regards to volleyball.
Okay, so basically, it was middle school, and I was a basketball player. My PE teacher, Aaron Kapp, he actually saw me in PE and said, you have to try out for volleyball. So I ended up trying out for the middle school team. It was 8th grade. And then he brought me over to Viper Volleyball, and that's where I started really, getting into volleyball. I played at Paloma Valley under Stephen Cass, and, varsity my whole time there. After high school, I had a full ride to UC Riverside, but, I was young and dumb, and I lost my scholarship there. So then I went to Mount San Jacinto. That's where I was coached by Serena my second year, and that's how, we started to become friends. She's my coach first, and then my mentor. But after that, that's when I transferred to Cal State LA, and I ended up finishing up my indoor and beach career at Cal State LA.
Awesome. Really great backstory. Sorry, did you want to add something else in regards to that?
Oh, no.
Okay. Okay, but hey, take it from me. I know all too well about going to a junior college, and I wasn't really the sharpest tool in the shed when it came to college, but overall, that's a great backstory for you, and everything happens for a reason, but you were able to carve out your plan, a different plan, and carve out your eventual career. All right, so when it comes to going to a junior college, what are some benefits to going to a junior college as opposed to diving right into a four-year university?
You know what? We talk about this all the time, but I think just personally, if an athlete doesn't have like a full ride right out of high school, I think it's like the best option for them instead of taking out like a bunch of loans. Right, like there's so many like grants and like FAFSA and like all that they can get their 2 years paid for at a junior college. It really gets them like acclimated into like, preparing them for what's going to be happening at the 4-year. And then they get, 2 more years to develop and potentially get a better scholarship than what they were going to be offered in the first place.
Great insight. And take it from me, I actually went to Orange Coast College in Costa Mesa, and
okay.
I wasn't an athlete, that's for sure. But going to a junior college is definitely beneficial when it comes to whether it's being an athlete or just being a student. And Larry B., our head honcho of IE Sports Radio, he says he played football at Riverside City College, and he says junior colleges are the best. And everything is a benefit playing for JUCO. Yeah, so, all right, Taylor, what were some of your favorite memories at Mount San Jacinto, and how did you grow as a person and as a volleyball player at Mount San Jacinto?
I think, a lot of people think, like, favorite memories, like, beating a team or, something like that. But for me, it was just, like, hanging out in the vans, like, getting to know my teammates and really, like, all the team bonding stuff and getting to know my coaches. That's when I was a player there. And then also, like, when I was coaching there, it's just the vans. I don't know. It's just something special. Like, going to an away game, you really get to know your players. The music's blasting. Everyone's having a good time, getting hyped for game time. So I think those are, like, my favorite memories.
Impressive. That's quite amazing. So, who were some of your favorite team rivals in high school and in college?
In high school, I think it would have to be like Elsinore. Back when I played, that was a long time ago. Had to really think back on that one. But at MSJC, our rivals were Grossmont and San Diego Mesa. And then when I was at Cal State LA, our rival has always been Cal State San Bernardino.
Got it. Because everyone loves some good rivalries when it comes to high school or college. Now, in addition to that, which team made you and Mount San Jacinto or Cal State LA work the hardest?
I would say just our rivals. So again, just Grossmont, when I was playing there, Serena would always say, like, Grossmont, or, are they doing this right now? Are they working out? Are we working harder? So Grossmont, San Diego Mesa, and then, of course, San Bernardino at Cal State LA again.
So following your playing career as a volleyball player, you went into coaching. At first, how did you get into coaching, and were you a little nervous when you first got into coaching?
Yes, so actually, Serena Eaton at MSJC, she really gave me a chance to come and assist her at MSJC. So, yes, I was very nervous, especially, as a player, being a player and coaching is like two different things. You could be a great player and not a really good coach, and vice versa, right? So I think just getting to know everything about coaching and being mentored by Serena really helped me with that.
How were you able to find Chaffey College, or did Chaffey College find you, considering you were basically in the same area and you're in the same conference?
Yeah. So I saw it online that it had opened, and I applied for the job, and I was just blessed that Chaffey gave me the opportunity to come and be their head coach.
So for this year, you being in your first year as head coach, what's it like being the head coach of a junior college, and what have been some ups and downs this season for your team?
You know what? I think just some ups and downs was me and my staff got hired on really late. So obviously just like recruiting purposes, we have a smaller team this year. But we are, we're a really strong team, and my team really wants to learn, and they want to, be the best, and we have our goals. And I think just, being a head coach, like I've wanted it my whole time once I started being a coach. And, it's such a blessing. I mean, I thank everyone who has ever supported me in my journey.
Awesome stuff. So it looks like you've played some Orange Empire Conference opponents such as Santa Ana, Saddleback, Cypress, and Riverside City. What has it been like playing those type of teams and playing stiff competition as a whole?
You know what? They have some really good teams, some really good players, and some really great coaches. And I think it's an eye opener, right? So I've told my team we're going to be playing. It's not just going to be an easy walk in the park. We got to earn every single point, and we got to earn every single win. No one's going to hand it to us, and they're definitely a great conference.
Yeah, and the old saying goes, iron sharpens iron, because anyone could probably breeze through non-conference play with an easy schedule, but I tip my hat to you for challenging the team against some of these really tough teams, because the Orange Empire Conference, take it from me, is no joke, with teams like Cypress, Irvine Valley, Orange Coast, the list goes on and on. But back to Chaffey. So you opened up conference play with a win over San Bernardino Valley. What was the thrill of opening your first conference game and getting the win and winning on your home court?
Yeah, so preseason, basically our whole preseason we were away except for our one quad tournament. So it was really nice to be able to be at home, have that opener, and the girls came out ready to go, and it was a good game.
So I actually got this question from Daryl a couple weeks ago, Daryl Trujillo, who was the one that recommended me, and he basically said, for me, he wanted my thoughts on the IEAC, which I imagine that's the conference that Chaffey plays in, correct?
Yeah.
So I'm no real expert on the IEAC, but can you tell me how competitive that conference is and what the teams are like on a nightly basis in conference play?
I think it's a really competitive conference. We have MSJC, we have College of the Desert, we have Saracoso. Oh, you know what? They're not in it this season. Obviously us, and it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a battle to win a conference title. So.
Yeah, it looks like there's also Victor Valley, Copper Mountain. Yeah. I think Copper Mountain must be a new team in the conference. If I'm not mistaken.
They're in Joshua Tree.
Got it. All right. So your next matchup is, ironically enough, against Mount San Jacinto, and it's actually at Mount San Jacinto. What's that feeling going to be like returning to the gym that you started your college volleyball career in?
Yeah, so it's going to be a really awesome feeling, to be back in the gym where it all started for me, as a player, and then I coached there, and then now coaching against them. Especially because I know most of those girls, and Serena and Brittany, I've coached with them. It's a huge conference match for both of our teams. And of course it's going to be a friendly rivalry between me and Serena. Mm-hmm. But everything really has come full circle because my assistant Patrick, Villanueva. He actually assisted Serena the year I played at MSJC. So it's going to be a really fun match to be a part of.
Excellent. So I totally forgot about this. Talk about your team and who have been your standouts and who have been some players that everyone should keep an eye on in terms of conference play and in terms of the 3C2A.
You know what? I will shout out my whole team because they are amazing. But some standouts, I have Haley Jimenez in the middle. We have a freshman setter, Alyssa Gomez. Our two outsides, Victoria and Emily Robbins, they're all doing really well. And my liberos. Geez, see, I'm telling you, everyone.
Yeah, go
Ava
ahead
and Sadie.
Awesome. That's great to hear. So anyway, for future up-and-coming college volleyball players, what advice could you give them going as they're like closing out their high school career, especially for like seniors and juniors?
I think just like being a leader, I think every coach wants someone who's going to step in and be a leader, taking care of their schoolwork, and someone who's just willing to learn and want to buy into the system that we're trying to create here.
Excellent. And what about advice for like first-year head coaches? Because I imagine it can be a little tricky being a first-year head coach. But what advice do you have for like first-year head coaches at any volleyball level?
I think just like being open and willing to learn, because you're going to learn the whole time. I thought I knew a lot being in like the junior college coaching life, but I was an assistant, and now being a head coach, I'm like, wow, it's just, there's so many other things that you have to do that you didn't think you had to do besides just the coaching aspect. So just learning, just wanting to learn and being open to everything.
I see. So you mentioned Patrick Villanueva.
Uh-huh.
What has that been like coaching with him? And obviously you mentioned he coached back when you were at Mount San Jacinto, but what's it been like coaching with Patrick Villanueva?
I think we really bounce off well from each other. Sometimes I'm the more strict one, so we're like the yin and the yang, so we keep each other accountable, and I love coaching with him. So
awesome. I love that reference, yin and yang. All right. So as we near the end of this little interview, just because I know you all are basically training for that big matchup against Mount San Jacinto, just what have been some of your favorite coaching memories so far at Chaffey?
I would say probably the first day I walked into the gym and just, introducing myself and really getting these girls to buy into our program. And I think one of our favorite memories probably would be we played MSJC in a tournament, and we did end up losing in 5, but we took them to 5, and just the energy and just their effort and overall play was just amazing. So I'm really excited for Wednesday.
Yeah, I'm now seeing that on the schedule, so that's my bad on that oversight. But anything else you want to add before we close out the interview?
No, I just want to say thank you again for inviting me on.
Anytime, Taylor. So do you have any outlets you want to plug in? Where could all these good people find you, all these volleyball fans could find your volleyball team in terms of social media?
Oh, yeah. So we have a Instagram. It is at Chaffey Volley. And then our Facebook's not really up right now. And then you could always follow along on chaffey.edu, and that'll give you all the all of our schedule and our stats and everything like that.
Excellent. Thank you. And your Twitter, or not Twitter, hardly anyone uses Twitter a whole lot. The Instagram will be in the description of the show. But thank you for coming on, Taylor. stay on the line for a little while while I give you a proper goodbye. But thank you to Taylor Kushner, Chaffey women's volleyball coach, for being a guest here on Set Point. We'll take ourselves a quick little commercial break. When I come back, I will be recapping the AVP's Phoenix Championship. So don't go anywhere. You're listening to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
Sports fans, do you like teams that are tough, cities that are tougher, and fan bases that are passionate about their teams? How about teams that are historic and stadiums that are iconic? Then you belong in Chicago, and you need to check out Chi-Town Weekly. Join me, Adam Kernan, every week as we keep up with all things Chicago sports. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs, White Sox. We'll cover them all, plus more. The Windy City is always buzzing, and we'll keep you up on all the big games and major stories. So tune in to Chi-Town Weekly every week right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Back with segment number 2 of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Definitely do check out our amazing shows such as Chi-Town Weekly, which goes on every Monday, 1 hour before Set Point goes on a regular basis. And then also check out Let's Whine About DMV Sports with Mike Pat. So gotta give that little plug right there. Gotta give one more big shout out to Taylor Kushner, Chaffey women's volleyball coach, for being on Set Point, as she was outstanding, and I totally enjoyed having her. And I also got to give a big shout out to Daryl Trujillo on recommending her, because he actually was the one that kind of led me to her, and vice versa. So we welcome Mike chat in the Pat room. He says, happy 3-year anniversary, Tan. Thanks, Mike. And also shout out to Larry B. He actually, apparently this was kind of in his neck of the woods, and he says Paloma, because Taylor went to Paloma Valley High School. That's actually Paris's rival, because Larry B went to Paris, and he says he lives on the I-15 freeway from Mount San Jacinto. So thank you for listening into that interview, Larry B. I appreciate it. And let's get on into segment number 2 of Set Point. Before we get on into it, Set Point would not be where it's at without IE Sports Radio. You can find IE Sports Radio on Twitter, Instagram, and on TikTok at IE Sports Radio, and on Facebook by typing in the word IE, then sports, then radio. Also, IE Sports Radio has a website, www.iesportsradio.com, and when you go on the website, you will see a Patreon link at the top, which starts out at $5 a month. This will get you a shout from all of our shows, including Set Point, and higher tiers include IE Sports Radio merchandise, access to IESRU, the podcasting university of IE Sports Radio, and even a chance to be featured on a segment of our flagship show, The Defining Moment, with Larry B. Thank you, everyone, for all of your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that sports. Big shout out to our Patreon supporters, Bay Area Raised Apparel, Marcus Losgreat, Key to the Gate, and a donor that wishes to remain anonymous. All right, now let's get on into segment number 2 of Set Point, and I'm actually going to discuss some AVP, just because, let's just say the AVP season is pretty much done with. The main gist of the AVP, and how we had ourselves probably the most dramatic championship in terms of the Phoenix Championships. But before I get into that, we actually had some breaking news regarding the Phoenix Championship before the whole tournament started. So, unfortunately, Phil Dalhausser was unable to participate in the tournament due to an injury which was undisclosed. So, unfortunately, Phil Dalhausser wasn't able to participate with Casey Patterson. So instead, Casey Patterson had to partner up with Andy Benish. Now, this was kind of, I wouldn't say it was a downgrade. It was a downgrade in terms of height, but it was still a good partner for Patterson to be with. I really thought that it wasn't too bad of a scenario, but it really sucks for Phil Dalhausser that he got hurt and he was unable to participate in the tournament. Would it have mattered in the tournament? Maybe. I mean, Phil Dalhausser is a living legend. He had been contemplating retirement. Like, he actually did briefly retire from the AVP, and then he came back. I know he's fully retired from competing in the Olympics, but Dalhausser took a little bit of a retirement leave and then came back, kind of like Tom Brady. Someone else that said that this was going to be the last ride was indeed Casey Patterson, as he said this was pretty much it. This was the last dance, and he obviously wanted to come out on top. So we'll go in chronological order. We'll start off with the women's side of things, as remember, this was a 6-team tournament, and if you all remember, I picked Sarah Hughes and Kelly Kolinsky to win the Women's Phoenix Championship, and then I also picked Taylor Crabb and Taylor Sander to win the Men's Phoenix Championship. So we'll start off with the women. We'll start with the quarterfinals. Taryn Kloth and Kristen Nuss were able to defeat Julia Scholes and Gina Urango in straight sets. Now, I actually got to see this whole tournament live. I actually got to see this tournament on my phone, and I was happy to actually see this. So, for me, it was actually something I had never seen before. I haven't really seen a whole lot of AVP. I've seen a little gist of it. But overall, it was actually quite the environment. They actually played in a stadium inside of Phoenix. I want to say it was the same place that the Phoenix Suns played. But overall, it was quite the big environment. There was a lot of people there. And honestly, it was an electric environment. Like, I wish I could have gone and seen this, but it's in Phoenix, Arizona. And I have work. So, yeah. So, in terms of the first matchup in terms of the Phoenix Women's Volleyball Championship, Taryn Kloth and Kristen Nuss took the first set from Gina Urango and Julia Scholes 21-15. So, believe it or not, Nuss and Kloth were actually down 13-12, but they went on an 8-0 run to go up 20-13, and eventually they won that first set. And then they won the second set. I didn't really get to see most of the second set, but I saw that Kloth and Nuss were up, and they eventually were able to win that second set 21-16. They controlled most of the match, and I basically said that their youth might have been their downfall. I think their youth was probably the best thing to happen to them. And I was a little surprised that Julia Scholes, coming off of that big tournament, that big international tournament, which she won with Haley Harward, she I wouldn't say she looked bad, but she didn't look as dominant as she was with Haley Harward. Now, something I noticed from Gina Yarongo was that she was wearing glasses. Now, I'm not sure why she was wearing, glasses. Apparently, these were protective glasses. These were protective glasses. They weren't, reader glasses or anything of that sort. But I was not certain why she wore those protective glasses. But she basically wore the protective glasses. I imagine it might have been because of, the bright lights, or I highly doubt it would probably be of the sun, just because you're playing indoors. As we welcome Davidson Crooks into the chat room, he says, "What's good? Congrats on 3 years." Appreciate that, Davidson. So, back to Gina Yarongo. I don't know why she wore protective glasses. Maybe it's because she got sand in her eyes, or again, maybe because of the lighting, maybe she's eye sensitive. Take it from me, who is nearsighted and has kind of sensitive seeing, but overall, it didn't really matter in the end, as, like I said, Nuss and Kloth took the second set and eventually won the match. And Yarongo looked good. She was not bad by any means. And Julia Scholes was also decent as well. It's just that the youth of Teran Kloth and Kristen Nuss were just so good. The blocking was there. Kristen Nuss was scampering all over the court. She's not the tallest girl when it comes to volleyball. Compare her to Teran Kloth, I think she's giving up quite a little bit of height. I'm not that I'm discriminating against that, but I'm just saying, you'll see on Instagram, if you go to her Instagram page, where she takes a picture of herself and Teran Kloth. But overall, the dynamic duo of Teran Kloth and Kristen Nuss was amazing, and those two have good cohesion as the two partnered with one another at LSU. So they advanced to the semifinals, where they would take on Sarah Hughes and Kelly Kalinsky. As for the other semifinal, I didn't really get to see this semifinal all too much, but Kelly Cheng, or Clace, and Betsy Flint swept Zana Muno and Sarah Pavin 21-17, 21-16. I didn't really get to see the whole match, but I basically got to see Cheng and Flint just straight up. They were the better team. I basically watched the highlights, and they were just the better team with great athleticism. Kelly Cheng was all over the place, and Betsy Flint was just doing her thing. And they advanced to the semifinals, where they would face Sarah Sponsel and Therese Cannon. The men's semifinals, unfortunately, I had to work, so I couldn't really watch the men's semifinals. But long story short, the men's semifinals consisted of Trevor Crabb and Tri Bourne taking on Paul Lotman and Miles Partain. Lotman and Partain beat Theo Brunner, not Theo Brunner. Lotman and Partain defeated Andy Benish and Casey Patterson, which the scores were actually close, 21-18, 21-19. And then Taylor Crabb and Taylor Sanders swept Troy Field and Chase Budinger 21-13 and 21-18. So the men's semifinals consisted of Trevor Crabb and Tri Bourne versus Paul Lotman and Miles Partain. And the other semifinal on the men's side consisted of Theo Brunner / Kame Shulk, not Shame Shulk. It's actually Kame, so my bad on mispronouncing that. So Kame Shulk and Theo Brunner versus Taylor Sander and Taylor Crabb. So that's basically your men's semifinals. I know I had to breeze through the men's quarterfinal, but unfortunately, I could not. I really did not. I can't blame myself. I can only blame myself because I had work, but it is what it is. So in the women's semifinal, Teran Kloth and Kristen Nuss upset Sarah Hughes and Kelly Kalinsky 21-12 and 21-17, as once again they controlled most of the match, as they were basically just they were just an overall strong pair, and I was very surprised to see them sweeping the top seed. Now, granted, being the top seed sometimes does not have its benefits, as basically you get a bye, but that also could mean rust. So overall, the bye might have hurt Sarah Hughes and Kelly Kalinsky, but I don't think that was too big of a deal. So Nuth and Kloth advanced to the Phoenix Women's Volleyball, or the Phoenix Championships Women's Final, as they took on Kelly Cheng and Betsy Flint, as they upset number 2 seed Sarah Sponsel and Therese Cannon 21-16 and 21-18. So I was quite impressed by this one, as they out-aced their Cheng and Flynn out-aced Sponsel and Cannon 6-2, and they showed no signs of fatigue from yesterday. Because remember, they went through the quarterfinals and advanced to the semifinals. So, and just like the first matchup in the semifinals, the team that got the first round bye did not benefit from it. But that's just speculation on my part. I'm not going to fully judge on if byes are better than actually playing in a quarterfinal, but I digress on that. So on the men's side of things, I actually got to see the men's semifinals just because at the time I was getting ready to leave to go to UC Irivine for the women's volleyball matchup. But as for the men's semifinal between Paul Ottman and Miles Partain and Trevor Crabb and Tri Bourne, it was quite the doozy, as Lottman and Partain took the first set 25-23. They dodged 4 set points, and they needed 2 set points of their own to win that first set. And I think that was kind of the turning point right there. If they don't take that close set, it's basically a whole different matchup, and Tri Bourne and Trevor Crabb are feeling good going into that second set. Speaking of the second set, Trevor Crabb and Tri Bourne took the second set 21-19, and this was actually the first time the tournament had a 3-set thriller. And basically this is the first time we got to see a 3-set match in the Phoenix Championship on the men's and or women's side. But eventually Paul Ottman and Miles Partain took the third set 15-19. It was tight throughout the early part of the third set, but then Lottman and Partain really started to string them together with blocks and aces. Well, they didn't really ace a whole lot, but they had strong kills. They had great blocks at the net. They had great plays to keep the rallies alive. So keep in mind, this is a young 20-year-old in Miles Partain and a veteran in Paul Lottman, as those two really had great cohesion with one another as they advanced to the final. As the other semifinal consisted of Theo Brunner and Kame Schulk taking on Taylor Sander and Taylor Crabb. Brunner and Schulk took the first set from Sander and Crabb, 21-16. They were basically strong throughout the most part. It was tight early on, but they eventually were able to pull away, and I was quite impressed by them. I knew they would eventually give a challenge to Taylor Crabb and Taylor Sander, just because they're the number 2 seed. And then in the second set, it was tight early on. It was tight for the most part in set 2, but then Sander and Crabb took the second set from Brunner and Schulk, 21-18, and we got to see another 3-set matchup in the men's semifinal. And actually, in the third set, we got to see Taylor Sander and Taylor Crabb taking charge early on in the third set, and it looked like they were going to breeze their way through the match. I think they were up 14-10, and then I want to say it was like that, but it was just tight overall. And then eventually Taylor Sander and Taylor Crabb won the third set 15-13 as they eventually advanced to the finals. I want to say it was 12-12, and then Taylor Sander and Taylor Crabb led 14-12, and then Brunner/Schulk dodged one match point, but eventually could not dodge the other, as Taylor Sander and Taylor Crabb advanced to play Miles Partain and Paul Lottman in the final. Now, at the time, when I finally got to the Brent Event Center at UC Irvine, I got to basically get myself settled in at the scorer's table. I guess I was by myself because there was no other media except for a photographer. But to keep myself focused on the women's volleyball matchup between UC Irvine and UC Santa Barbara, as well as the AVP, I basically brought my laptop, and I basically got to watch the live stream of the AVP. And in addition, I watched the matchup between UC Irvine and UC Santa Barbara. So before I continue, we have to go through the men's 5th place matchup and the men's 3rd place matchup. So on the men's side of things, because they didn't really do it in like true particular order, Troy Field and Chase Buninger took 5th place as they won a 3-set thriller. It was a bittersweet moment for Casey Patterson, as this was his last match of his AVP career, as he basically called it a career, and he got the most amazing tribute. And I basically said on Twitter, I gotta give a set point tip of the cap to Casey Patterson on an outstanding AVP career. Just absolutely amazing, and it sucks that his career had to come at the expense of a loss, but it's all good. He participated in 112 events, and he won 18 tournaments. I don't know which teammates he's won with, but overall, it's still a great career for Casey Patterson. It just would have been awesome to see him going out with a win. It would have probably been the best storybook ending that anyone could have written up, but unfortunately, that was not the case. But overall, it wasn't bad. And then Theo Brunner and Kame Schulk took down Trevor Crabb and Triborn in straight sets in the 3rd place matchup. It felt so weird seeing the number 1 seed and the number 2 seed going down in the in the semifinals. And then on the women's side of things, Sarah Pavin and Zana Muno took down Julia Scholes and Gina Urango in 2 sets. And then in the 3rd place matchup, Sarah Hughes and Kelly Kalinsky took down Sarah Sponsel and Therese Cannon in straight sets. I honestly was hoping that some of the matchups would go the distance, just because the UC Irvine-UC Santa Barbara matchup at the moment before the championship match happened, it was like in the late stages of set 5, and I was like, come on, don't have the final go on the same time as UC Irvine and UC Santa Barbara go to a 5th set. More on that later. So the women's final consisted of Taryn Cloth and Kristen Nuss taking on Kelly Cheng and Betsy Flint. So this was the 4 seed versus the 3 seed, experience versus, I wouldn't say inexperienced versus experience, but veterans versus young guns. And it was quite the fascinating matchup when it came to this little matchup between the LSU pair versus the former like college stars in Kelly Cheng and Betsy Flint. So Cloth and Nuss were basically, I wouldn't say they were hot to start, but they were basically on their A game to start the first set, as they didn't really plan on slowing down. I didn't get to see most of the first set just because I was interviewing players and coaches at the time following the UC Irvine, UC Santa Barbara match, but they won the first set 21-16, and they jumped out to an early 10-6 lead in set number 2. And eventually they just rode the momentum from set 1 as they won that second set 21-17, and they basically earned it. I was very impressed with how Taryn Cloth and Kristen Nuss, on the biggest stage of the season, were able to come up big. And this is the second straight tournament they've won this season. Second straight tournament they've won this season, and I think it was like the 4th overall. It was either the 3rd or 4th overall, but remember, they had to, in order to clinch a playoff spot for them, they needed to win the Chicago Open. Not take 2nd, not take 3rd. They needed to win the entire tournament. And they were able to do so in the Chicago Open, and they were able to win the Phoenix Championships, which included taking down the number 1 seed. It was just a great ending for Taryn Cloth and Kristen Nuss. And honestly, they really earned it. I was really impressed by how they were able to just play against some of these more experienced veteran teams or veteran pairs. It was just an overall great match, and the AVP's future is so bright with Taryn Cloth and Kristen Nuss, because I think those two are only 25 years old, and they're only like 2 years removed from college, and they're still doing it big following their amazing college career at LSU. And in addition, they've won, I think, 2 international tournaments. So I really think that these two need to continue to stay together, and I hope they can stay together in terms of the AVP for years to come. So as for the men's final, I finally got to get back home. I finally got home following the UC Irvine-UC Santa Barbara match, and I got to see the men's final. And Taylor Sander and Taylor Crabb took the first set against Miles Partain and Paul Lottman, 21-17. Lottman and Partain, despite losing that first set, they had a lot of energy. They were just digging balls, blocking balls at the net, and just looking nowhere near fearless. But Taylor Sander and Taylor Crabb, they were just on their A game in that first set. And then Lottman and Partain took the second set from Sander and Crabb, 21-17, as they hit 579 in that set. And it was basically tight throughout that first set, but then Lottman and Partain broke through and eventually won that second set. Now, the third set was very interesting. It looked as if Taylor Sander and Taylor Crabb were going to breeze their way to victory. I think they were up like 14-10. This was the match where they were up 14-10 in set 3. And then Paul Lottman and Miles Partain scored the next 3. And I was like, is this going to be another big comeback from Lottman and Partain? But then Taylor Crabb closed the door with an off-speed kill, which gave Taylor Sander and Taylor Crabb the match 15-13, and it was just an absolute amazing win. It was actually the first tournament that Taylor Sander won in his AVP career, as, like I said, Crabb finished the job with an off-speed kill, and I call Taylor Sander and Taylor Crabb Team Taylor. So it was quite the great tournament that they had, and congrats to Taylor Sander on finally getting that first AVP championship. Just because he mainly played a whole lot of indoor, but now he tried beach volleyball, and he looked good in terms of playing the game. And then after the game, there was like this post-game speech or post-game interview where Taylor Crabb, let's just say Taylor Crabb said a bad word. Well, he said a bad word. He obviously was excited that his team won, but let's just say he dropped the F-bomb. I'm not going to play the interview just because I don't want us to get a copyright strike, nor do I want us to have to put the explicit button on this. But overall, it was just a great tournament, and Taylor Crabb is basically a mood following that third set. So that was that for the AVP's Phoenix Championship. That basically is it for the most part of the AVP. The next tournament isn't going to be until November 11th and 12th when the AVP comes to Huntington Beach for the Huntington Beach Open. Like I said, I'm hoping to go to that one. It would be huge for me to go to that one since it's in my backyard. Well, not like my backyard, but it's near where I live. But either way, I am looking forward to the final two tournaments. Even though it's not Gold Series, it's on the Pro Series and the Tour Series. So that is basically that for the AVP. And watching my first ever AVP event on my iPhone, it was amazing. Like, beach volleyball is so underrated, and AVP I really think is very much, I wouldn't say it's forgotten about, but it's like, it's not really talked a whole lot when it comes to like certain volleyball shows. I mean, some volleyball podcasts talk about the AVP, but more volleyball shows and podcasts need to talk about the AVP. I'm not the most knowledgeable one just because I have a lot of volleyball, but I really think that the AVP is great material. And it's great volleyball as well, just because beach volleyball is starting to take over, well, not take over, but it's starting to like spread more and gain more recognition, not just for like adults, but for like high school kids as well. I read a little article that said high school kids are choosing beach volleyball more so than indoor volleyball, and it means a lot. It would be huge for the beach volleyball world. So overall, the AVP was just a great event in terms of the Phoenix Championships. They actually showed a rerun of the whole, I want to say it was like the semifinals or the finals on FS1. I just wish we could see this in general on national TV. Just because the NCAA Beach Volleyball Championship gets national televised events, and some of these other volleyball events have been getting nationally televised events. But overall, I think the AVP is vastly underrated. And this weekend was amazing, if you ask me. The women's side did not have any 3-set matches, but then day 2 of the men's side of things, I mean, obviously we had upsets in the semifinals. We had the 4 seed and the 3 seed from both the men's and women's side beating the 1 seed and 2 seed. And then on the men's side of things, we got 3 3-set matches. We got 2 of the semifinals being 3-set thrillers, and then we got the final being a 3-set thriller. And then also, I guess, on the consolation side of things, we got thrillers as well in terms of the men's side of things. It was also great. It was also a great little tribute to Casey Patterson to send him off like that. I wish he could have been sent off on a better note, on a positive note in terms of a win, but it's all good. He had a fantastic career, and the AVP is not going to be the same without Casey Patterson, but it is in good hands with the likes of Miles Partain. And then, like I said, the women's side of things didn't really have a 3-set matchup, but when it came to the men's side of things, we got 4 3-set matches, including the consolation match in the 5th place match between Casey Patterson and Andy Benish and Chase Budinger and Troy Field. So overall, it was just a great little tournament. On the men's side, it was so amazing. And then the women's side, obviously seeing a absolute really talented young pair win the whole Phoenix Championship was amazing. And I really can't wait for the Huntington Beach Open. Obviously, we're not going to see the biggest of pairs, but I really want to see the Huntington Beach Open just because I want to see an AVP tournament in person. That's kind of one of my bucket list goals. Granted, I would have liked to see a Gold Series tournament, but you can't go wrong with any AVP tournament. So that is going to do it for the AVP portion of the show. We're going to take one last commercial break. When we come back, we are going to recap some NCAA women's volleyball from Week 5. Then we'll go over some NCAA women's volleyball for Week 6. And I also got to recap the UC Irvine-UC Santa Barbara matchup. And also got to reflect on 3 years of Set Point. So keep it locked here. You're listening to Set Point. Oh, and don't forget, if you have any questions for me, as long as they're appropriate, put them down in the chat room if you're listening live. I will be doing a Q&A. We've only got one question so far, but definitely add your questions if you are listening live, and I will hopefully read them on the air. So keep it locked here. You are listening to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
What is going on, everybody? My name is Harrison Glazer, and we're coming at you from the Show That Never Sleeps podcast. I cover the Jets, the Islanders, the Nets, and the Yankees.
This is Pierre Moss, and I cover the Mets, Knicks, Rangers, and the Giants.
Our show is live every Wednesday through Spreaker and a bunch of other ways to get our content. Again, we're the Show That Never Sleeps podcast. We talk about all those New York sports. It's a lot of fun. We get into all of it. Please tune in. Again, that's Wednesdays at 6 p.m.
And we look forward to having you guys right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hello, ladies and sinners. Hello, sports fans around the world. Hello, IE Sports family. This is Cale Henderson, the host of IE Vegas, the Sin City Sports Show. presented by IE Sports Radio. If you folks are interested in sports in the Vegas area, if you're wanting to have a blast for 1 hour every Tuesday night from 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, this is a show built for the Vegas sports fans, where we feature the Las Vegas Raiders, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, the Las Vegas Aces, and the University of Las Vegas, Nevada Rebels. Hopefully, fingers crossed, MLB team coming soon. Either way, if you folks are looking to have a blast for 1 hour each and every week, tune in Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you folks are interested in Vegas sports news, go to our Twitter, at SinCities_IESR, and you can speak with me, the host, Cale Henderson, at Cale_Henderson on Twitter. At any time, be happy to reply. Always want to reach out to our fans. Again, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And we are back with our final segment of the 3-year anniversary special of Set Point. Definitely check out all of our shows on iSports Radio. We have shows dedicated to the city of New York / New Jersey. We have shows dedicated to the city of Las Vegas, Chicago, the DMV, aka Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia. We have a show dedicated to Indiana. The list goes on and on. Definitely check out all of our amazing shows. And we also have shows dedicated to certain sports, such as combat sports, basketball, football, and even college football. So let's get on into the final segment of Set Point, the 3-year anniversary special. So we had a lot of quite the eventful week 5, which had every conference opening its conference schedule. I'm not going to get into my teams you should buy stock into, just because this wasn't a special episode of Set Point, and I don't want the show to be as long as possible because I still have a match to recap myself. But we had a lot of upsets from this past week, as we had on Wednesday we had LSU taking down Arkansas in 5 sets, which was quite the big win for LSU. The thing about LSU is that they hadn't really had too many big wins. They had a few matches where they were right there, but unfortunately they just could not pull out that big win. But they were able to take down Arkansas in 5 sets, which I thought was the biggest win for them this season. And this was on last Wednesday. And the upsets didn't stop there for LSU. They actually beat number 12 Kentucky at Kentucky in 5 sets on Saturday. Saturday. It was Saturday. As they beat them on Saturday, which I was very impressed that they were able to do that. Considering they had to play 3 ranked opponents in a row. Well, not in a row, but in 1 week, LSU was able to pull out that win on the road. And it's never easy to beat Kentucky at Kentucky, as this was actually the first time they beat Kentucky on the road since October 19th, 2014. Absolutely impressive win by the Tigers. Unfortunately, they did lose the rematch, or the second matchup between Kentucky, as they lost in straight sets on Sunday. But it's all good because LSU pulled out 2 out of 3 wins in the SEC against ranked opponents, mind you. And for that honor, they were my NCAA Women's Volleyball Team of the Week for Week 5. And for them to do that is quite impressive. And I was very impressed with how they were able to just pull out 2 5-set wins against ranked opponents, one of which was on the road, and it's never easy to win in Kentucky, but the fact that LSU was able to do that was quite astounding. Other upsets we had were, on Sunday, we had South Carolina beating Florida in 5 sets, which was very impressive. South Carolina, they're always a sneaky good team in the SEC, and they always pull out the upset that most people don't think they're going to do. Last year they did it against Kentucky, which was Kentucky's only loss in the SEC play, and this year they were able to do it against Florida, a talented Florida team at that. And then we also had Oregon, number 21 Oregon, upsetting number 5 Stanford at Matthew Knight Arena in Oregon. or in Portland, Oregon, at Matthew Knight Arena in Autzen, Oregon. But Oregon pulled off the win over Stanford. I was very impressed that they were able to do so on its home floor. I have kind of been riding Oregon a little bit just because they have had some matches that were kind of close, but that went down to the wire, like against Rice and Long Beach State. But overall, I was very impressed by Oregon. I thought they were very sharp, especially winning that second set. If they don't win that second set, Stanford is feeling good being tied 1-1 and taking a dramatic set that required more deuce games. But overall, it was a very good win for Oregon, and I think they've changed my perspective on them, especially in the Pac-12. And then in the Battle of the Border, we had Minnesota sweeping Wisconsin. This rivalry was mainly owned by Wisconsin in terms of women's volleyball, but Minnesota was able to basically, go on the road and win that one in 3 sets. And this was quite the big win for Minnesota, as they actually lost on Friday to Purdue in straight sets at Lafayette. But the fact they were able to beat Wisconsin, which was kind of their boogeyman, is quite impressive. And I got to tip my hat to Minnesota. I really was impressed by how they were able to pull out that win against Wisconsin. And then also we had Michigan taking down Penn State on... I probably am going to mess this up. On Friday, as well, as that was actually Penn State's first loss, and they were number 9 in the nation. Now, here's the thing about Michigan. Michigan is a team that I've said to buy stock into. They have had their ups and downs, but they finally pulled out that big win over Penn State, and they needed that win just because, Michigan is a good team, and I feel they don't get a whole lot of credit for their team. But I really thought that Michigan, they played Penn State really well. I don't know if Penn State was just not ready for the Wolverines, but I really thought that Michigan just played a great match. And it just goes to show that Michigan is a team you need to buy stock into when it comes to women's volleyball. And that is pretty much that in terms of all the noteworthy upsets. I probably missed a few, but overall, it was a great first week of full-on conference play, and I was happy that we got to see a lot of parity, just because now it's just so great to see. And we almost got to see another upset last Wednesday when Texas, number 1 Texas, traveled to Kansas to play Kansas on national TV. I believe it was on ESPN2, but either way, it was quite the great matchup. Kansas won the first 2 sets by a combined 4 points, and then it looked as if Texas was dead in the water in set 3. They were down 11-7, but then Texas really started serving strong, as Melanie Parra, she is such a great server, and I didn't even know who Melanie Parra was until I saw this matchup between Texas and Kansas, and eventually, I'm just going to spoil the ending. Texas reverse swept Kansas, and I knew Kansas was good, but Texas, after they got punched in the mouth in that second set, and well, not punched in the mouth, but after they dropped a gut-wrenching second set end, I knew that the real beast was about to be unleashed. So overall, it's quite amazing that Texas has loads of talent, and they're able to utilize all of their positions. It's not just the Kayla Chaffey show, but Logan Eggleston, and it's not the Logan Eggleston show, but it's just they have a lot of talent, such as Melanie Parra, like I mentioned. Asia O'Neal has been amazing in the middle. Zoe Fleck, absolutely outstanding at the libero position. And I'm blanking. Oh, Maddie Skinner. I'm thinking of the oldest Skinner. Maddie Skinner has been outstanding. She's been a great left-hand woman for Logan Eggleston. And that's just so much talent right there. And Melanie Parr just gives him so much more firepower, especially on the service line. It's just so amazing. So I'm very impressed by how Texas was able to right the ship after they were down 0-2. And I got this strange feeling we were either going to see a reverse sweep or we were going to see number one going down. And unfortunately for Kansas fans, we saw the reverse sweep. But it just goes to show how good Kansas is. Yes, Kansas got punched in the mouth against UCF or Central Florida. But overall, I think Kansas is still somewhat of a threat to the Big 12. Do I think they're going to beat Texas? Probably not. But I think second or third could be in their future. So that is that for my little gist of upsets in terms of that little recap of Week 5. So on Saturday, as I mentioned when I was talking about the AVP, I went to the UC Irvine-UC Santa Barbara match, and this was quite the barn burner. So the first set, well, I should probably make note that UC Santa Barbara went 5 sets the night before against UC San Diego. They wound up winning that. And then UC Irvine brought out the brooms and swept CSUN or Cal State Northridge. In this matchup against Santa Barbara, it was quite an interesting matchup as early on it was tight between the two teams. Santa Barbara eventually led 24-22. They have some really good players on that team. But UC Irvine, they were able to basically turn the tables late in the set. They scored the last 4 points. The last 2 points from UC Irvine were basically UC Santa Barbara hitting errors. But overall, it shows that UC Irvine is resilient. They have a good team. They were 8-3 going into this match, and that's nothing to really sneeze at just because UC Irvine, they've had their ups and downs in terms of certain seasons, but the Anteaters have a very solid team. But early in that first set, I forgot to make note of this, is that I didn't make note of this on Twitter, that their libero, Campbell Jensen, she actually got drilled in the face with a volleyball. Like, she was preparing to dig a ball from UC Santa Barbara, and then I don't know who hit the ball. I think it was Tasia Farmer. She just spikes the ball straight down, spikes the ball so fast that it just drills Campbell Jensen in the face. And we didn't get to see her a whole lot. And I imagine it was probably because of a concussion. She was probably in concussion protocol. But overall, it wasn't necessarily too bad. I really felt so bad for her just because getting drilled in the face with a volleyball is not fun. And I imagine she wanted to continue playing, but she eventually kept playing for a little bit after she got drilled in the face with the volleyball, but then the coach decided, we got to take you out. We got to look at you for concussion protocol. And eventually taking over was Carly Richter, and she did pretty well for UC Irvine. I'll get into her a little bit later, but the second set, it was also tight. Early on, Santa Barbara led, but then UC Irvine, in the second half of the set, they started to take charge. They won the second set 25-22. They led 2-0 in the match. And then Santa Barbara really started to get together. The third set, Santa Barbara took charge. They got some really good kill contributions from Tallulah Froley, as well as Tasia Farmer and Michelle, I'm going to really butcher her name, Michelle Owobite. As eventually the Gauchos took the third set 25-21. And then the fourth set came as early on, Santa Barbara led. I think they led by as many as 8 or 7. But then UC Irvine was able to chip away at that lead. They got down to as little as 2 before both teams reached the media timeout. But then Santa Barbara really turned on the Jets. They really took charge. They eventually won the fourth set 25-17 as the match went 5 sets. And every match I've been to when it comes to the Brent Event Center has gone the distance. So I don't know if UC Irvine wants to do something about that, but overall, it's always fun to see a 5-set match. Now, this 5th set was quite the doozy. So first off, we had UC Irvine leading 8-5 at the side change, as it was basically UC Irvine controlled that fifth set for the most part. They eventually led 13-10, and I'm thinking, okay, well, Santa Barbara tried, but they're not going to get the reverse sweep. But then they eventually got the kill, brought it to 13-11. I believe there was a mishandling error. There was some sort of error on UC Irvine. I think it was like a hitting error, and UC Irvine called timeout. They're down. They're up 13-12. Santa Barbara eventually gets another kill. It's tied 13-13, and I'm like, oh my goodness. And then at 13-13, UC Irvine, they were about to pound down an overpass kill, but then it goes into the net, and then the girl that basically swung at the ball, she was called for a double hit violation. That put UC Santa Barbara at match point, so UC Irvine had to call their second timeout, and eventually UC Irvine hit the ball out. I filmed the last point, and at first it didn't look like it hit out, but then on replay, it showed that the ball was hit out, and that's how UC Santa Barbara won. So it was a very impressive win for UC Santa Barbara as they stayed undefeated in Big West Conference play. If you notice UC Santa Barbara, they hadn't really had the best of non-conference schedules, as they didn't really have a great non-conference schedule. It wasn't terrible, but they left a lot of possible wins on the board, and it was just a tough non-conference schedule, but they always love to schedule tough in non-conference play. So after the game, I caught up with UC Santa Barbara women's volleyball coach Nicole Lantagne Welch following the Gauchos win over the Anteaters. All right, Coach, your team managed to bow back from an 0-2 deficit, and you had to dig your way out of a 13-10 deficit in set 5, winning the last 5 points. What was the keys to the victory tonight?
Staying persistent and trusting our training that we were going to come up with some plays when we needed them down the stretch. Not to overreact to any one play or any one thing. And I really liked our composure down the stretch, and I think that was huge for us.
Now, this was your second straight 5-set match, as last night you went 5 with UC San Diego and won. Was there a little fatigue in sets 1 and 2 in this match?
Maybe a little mental fatigue. I think physically we're fine, and we have got great athletes in great shape. But that's part of the grind of conference. You got to come out back to back, and you got to play. So you got to In fact, we were in control of that first set too. So we just kind of let some things slip away there. So, but that's a lesson learned for us for sure.
Tallulah obviously came up big, but Michelle as well as Tasia also stepped up. What can you say about your pin hitters and how they were able to produce all night?
Yeah, I think they really started to get smarter with the game plan, and they know when they have a green light swing to go let their athleticism take over and take aggressive swings, and then they got smarter about situations that weren't as good, and that really, really helped us.
Now, non-conference play, y'all had a little bit of a sluggish start, but then you started to pick it up with a couple wins over Georgetown. You won last night, and then you won tonight. How big of a win is this, and how big is it going 2-0 in conference play? Yeah?
Well, anytime you get wins on the road in conference, it's a big thing. And obviously, you want to start out strong. And I think that getting that statement and going, we get to go back home next week, but the competition just gets tougher. So we have to keep improving.
Anyone else that stood out to you tonight?
Honestly, I think it was I think Denny Wilson had a really big match for us, and she came up with some critical blocks for us.
Now, your next match is Cal Poly, I want to say?
Yes.
Yeah, green and blue rivalry match. Cal Poly beat Long Beach State last night. What's it going to take down the Mustangs, and what's it going to take to be successful in conference going forward?
Yeah, we need to improve this week because we made a lot of errors in the different stretches of this match, and we need to be able to clean that up and be smarter from start to finish and really play composed from the beginning all the way through every set.
So that was my post-game interview with Nicole Lantagne Welch of UC Santa Barbara. Overall, the fact that her team battled back from an 0-2 deficit is quite amazing, but the fact that her team also battled back from a 13-10 deficit and scored the last 5 points is quite amazing as well. Granted, 3 of those 5 points from the Gauchos were courtesy of UC Irvine errors, but I really thought that it was quite the amazing victory and quite amount of great resilience for Santa Barbara. I want to say Santa Barbara was picked to finish second in the Big West Conference, and overall, they're starting to show why they were picked to finish second. Also, Hawaii and Cal Poly won. They both went 2-0 in conference play last weekend, as basically we're going to get some interesting matchups in the Big West Conference. I caught up with UC Santa Barbara standout Tallulah Froley, as she had herself quite the game. Froley finished with 18 kills, she hit .286, and she contributed 3 digs, and she had 2 blocks at the net. So here's my post-game interview with Tallulah Froley of UC Santa Barbara.
Good.
All right, Tallulah, your team was able to come up with a big 5-set win on the road against UC Irvine, second straight 5-set win in as many days. How big is this win for you all in conference play?
This feels so good. I think we're really strengthening our mental game out here. We've never really been a 5-set game winner, and now we're really turning the tides on this weekend. I think this really shows our mental strength, and it shows that we're ready to come out there and win the Big West.
In addition to your big night, you also got some kill contributions from Michelle and Tasia.
Yes.
What can you say about those two? And also Denny chipped in the middle as well.
They're freaking animals. They are so smart. Mish played so smart today. Denny and Tasia really just knowing when to take rips, knowing when to push it to off blocker. But they're really smart, really strong players, and I'm so proud of them. They crushed it.
Now, the first 2 sets, you were in those sets, but unfortunately it slipped through your fingers. Mm-hmm. Last night you went 5. Do you think there was a little fatigue from last night's 5-set thriller against UC San Diego?
Definitely a little bit. Honestly, I think more in our voices and energy than in our playing. But it took us a second to catch stride, but we really played our game in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th set. So I think next weekend starting there rather than finishing there is our key.
Now, obviously, you've had an up-and-down non-conference play, but it looks like you've finally gotten everything straightened out. Like, how big is this win going into next week and going forward into conference play more?
This is huge. These are 2 really good teams, and I think we could have played one of 2 ways, and we played the stronger way tonight. So this is huge. This shows that we can really have grit through all 5 sets.
And then next week is Cal Poly at your place.
Yeah.
What's it going to take to take down the Mustangs, since that's a rivalry game?
Yeah, I think playing our game from the very start, from first match point all the way to the end. Just playing our game, staying smart, pushing to our good pins, and keeping our serve.
In addition to the big night from Tallulah Froley, Michelle Owobite, and Tasia Farmer, UC Santa Barbara got 19 digs from McCall Pede and 10 digs from Owobite. As a team, UC Santa Barbara hit .216, which wasn't really bad. It wasn't the best, but it could have been a whole lot worse. Santa Barbara also ran a 6-2 offense, as Mihana Ma and Megan Shimoda both had 26 assists, which I thought is rather interesting. Shimoda I really like in terms of her gameplay. She rips a mean top serves, or top jump serve. Either way, she has a really tough serve, and I really think that if you're not ready for that serve, you're going to be at the mercy of UC Santa Barbara. UC Irvine was led by Mariana Bertolone, who had 20 kills. She hit .341, which was quite impressive. Onye Ofobu chipped in 16 kills, and Joy Ume added 11 kills. UC Irvine also ran a 6-2 offense, as Kelly Negron and Indy Desmet had 27 and 16 assists respectively. As a team, UC Irvine only hit 170, which I kind of thought was a little alarming, but it's like you're going to have to hit a whole lot better if you want to win these type of matches. In terms of digs, Carly Richter added 11 digs. Now, she took the place, like I said, of Campbell Jensen. Unfortunately, I could not confirm what happened with Campbell Jensen. I imagine she was in concussion protocol. I did not catch up with UC Irvine's coach or any of its players, but Carly Richter did well in place of Campbell Jensen. Also, Kelly Negron added 10 digs as well. So, overall for UC Irvine, I didn't think they played bad. It's just that they really let up in that fifth set. I really was so surprised, and it's disappointing as a player and a coach and as a fan to see your team up 13-10 and then relinquishing the last 5 points. This is a matchup that could come back to haunt UC Irvine if and when it truly matters down the stretch. UC Santa Barbara also outdug UC Irvine 61-54, and they outblocked UC Irvine 17-10. Now, the blocks were very big. That was probably what broke the straw that broke the camel's back, and I really thought that UC Santa Barbara did everything well defensively. What they lacked in offense in the first 2 sets, they kind of made up for defensively, as they hit 242. Like Coach Welch said, it wasn't more so them sucking in that first set, and I shouldn't say sucking, but they just kind of let go. They kind of fell apart late in that first set. If they take that first set, it's a whole different outlook, and Santa Barbara's probably feeling good going up 1-0 in set number 2, because set number 2 was also kind of close as well. So for Santa Barbara, they still have some things to clean up on, but this weekend they are taking on a very talented Cal Poly team. I think that's going to be a great matchup. The blue and green matchup, and it's 2-0 teams in conference. So one will be leaving 3-0, and the other will be leaving 2-1. One of my friends that works for UC Irvine women's volleyball, who is basically, I think, color commentary, he said that he predicts that the Big West Conference champion is going to have 2, if not 3, conference losses. And I actually agree with that. I think this is going to be a conference where it's still wide open. Hawaii definitely is the sharpest tool in the shed. Santa Barbara, I think, is getting it together. Cal Poly, their overall record is so misguiding. They've played some stiff competition. They almost beat Northwestern, and they almost beat Washington. Fortunately, fell short in both those matches. But I think Cal Poly is much better than its record shows, and Long Beach State paid the price with that. And then, as I said, UC Santa Barbara, despite going 5 sets in both matches, they really performed well. I really think Tasia Farmer did well as Tallulah Froley. She's a great leader for that team, and I'm excited to see what UC Santa Barbara has to offer in the rest of the Big West Conference. And overall, that's pretty much that for my match for the UC Irvine-UC Santa Barbara matchup. So, unfortunately for me, I didn't really get to see a whole lot of... I didn't really get to do a little preview of the up-and-coming matches, the up-and-coming noteworthy matches of week number 6, which is completely my bad, just because this is a special episode of Set Point. This is the 3-year anniversary of Set Point, and looking at the matches to watch for on Friday, we have Washington at Stanford. I didn't get into the AVCA top 25, which that is my bad. Before we get on into the matches to watch for in week 6, we gotta go over the top 25 from this week. So we'll start off with 25 through 21. 25 consists of Western Kentucky, 24 UCF, Arkansas is 23, Rice is 22, and Creighton is 21. 20 through 16 consists of Pepperdine at 20, Marquette at 19, Kentucky at 18, Washington at 17, and Oregon at 16. 15 through 11 consists of BYU at 15, Florida at 14, Baylor at 13, Penn State at 12, and Georgia Tech at 11. 10 through 6 consists of Pitt at 10, Stanford at 9, Wisconsin at 8, Minnesota at 7, and Ohio State at 6. 5 through 1 consists of Purdue at 5, San Diego at 4, Nebraska at 3, Louisville at 2, and your still number 1 team in the AVCA Women's Volleyball Division I Coaches Poll is Texas. So thankfully for Texas, they were able to pull out the reverse sweep against Kansas. Otherwise, I imagine Louisville would be the number 1 team. San Diego had themselves a great weekend. They beat Pepperdine in 4 and then outlasted Loyola Marymount in 5. That was kind of a doozy of a match. That was on Saturday, and I thought that was a very tricky matchup just because LMU is so underrated. I don't think they get the credit they deserve just because they beat UCLA despite them not having Charity Looper. And then also they beat Long Beach State at LMU, even though they lost at 5 at Long Beach State. So for overall for this top 25, it's quite the impressive top 25. I should also make note that Ohio State nearly upset Nebraska, but Nebraska pulled out the win in 5 sets I want to say it was at Lincoln, but overall, if it wasn't, then I apologize. Nebraska was able to pull off the win over Ohio State. I thought it was a great win for the Huskers, just because that 5th set was so tight, and eventually they were able to break through. So it was a great win for the Huskers, and this just goes to show that Nebraska is just so good. Also, gotta give a shout out to Coach Cook on his 800th win at John Cook at Nebraska on winning his 800th win. I think that's an amazing milestone. And also, the Baylor women's volleyball coach, whose name I am unfortunately blanking on, he won his 500th game at Baylor, which I was very impressed in terms of, just because it's when you reach a milestone like 500 or so, it's quite amazing, and it just shows how great you are in terms of longevity. And Ryan McGuire, that's his name. Ryan McGuire won his 500th game at Baylor, which I thought was very impressive. So congratulations to Ryan McGuire, and here's to more wins to come. So that's pretty much that in terms of the AVCA coaches polls. Now let's get on into the matchups to watch for. And like I said, I did not do the best job in terms of preparing for the matchups to watch for. So at a glance, we have on Friday, in terms of our noteworthy matches, we have number 17 Washington at number 9 Stanford. That's a big Pac-12 matchup. Washington went 2-0 last weekend, while Stanford went 1-1, losing to Oregon. This is what's going to really test Stanford. If Stanford can win this matchup, they're in good shape in terms of keeping its hopes of winning the Pac-12 intact. But if Washington wins this, then they get a leg up on Stanford, and they're 2 matches ahead of them in the standings. And this will make for an interesting concept in terms of the Pac-12. Also, we have Penn State at number 12 Penn State at number 8 Wisconsin. This is another big-time matchup. Wisconsin and Penn State are both 1-1, and Penn State has the tough honor of going down to Wisconsin to take on those Badgers. It's going to be very tough for Penn State to win, considering they have such a young team, but they have some stud players. Kashana Williams, back in her day at Long Beach State, she was a stud for the Beach, and she's a stud now for the Nittany Lions. I really think that Penn State could pull off the upset, but I kind of defer to Wisconsin. They have a lot to prove, and if Wisconsin goes 1-2, they can kind of kiss the Big Ten championship goodbye. On Saturday, we have number 13 Baylor at Kansas, which is receiving votes. Now, Kansas, I think, is an interesting team. I think they could pull off this win. Here's my thing, though. They have to watch out for Baylor's balanced attack, and Baylor can block the ball really well. And I really think that this is going to be the biggest test for the Jayhawks. If they could beat Baylor, they're without a doubt an NCAA tournament team. In terms of the SEC, we have number 23 Arkansas at Mississippi State. I feel this is a sneaky good matchup. If I were doing my traditional sneaky good, noteworthy, and definitely noteworthy, this would probably be borderline of noteworthy and sneaky good. So Mississippi State has kind of been on I wouldn't necessarily call it the decline, but I think Mississippi State has quite a bit to show in terms of their true potential. I think they're a good team. I really do think they are. But I want them to actually show me how talented they are. They actually lost to an Auburn team, which I have seen this. Auburn is undefeated, but Auburn's level of competition that they've played so far, it hasn't really shown me a whole lot. Now, Mississippi State, on the other hand, they have to prove to me that they are indeed the real deal as they play Arkansas at Mississippi State. I think Arkansas is going to want to come back with a lot of vengeance. Oh, I wouldn't say vengeance, but they want to come out, I wouldn't say guns a-blazing, but I think they want to come out and prove that they still deserve to be ranked. Because if Arkansas loses this, they're probably going to be out of the top 25. And Mississippi State is a fairly good team. They're still looking for that big breakout win. I really think that they have that potential. The two actually play each other on Saturday and on Sunday. And if Mississippi State wins one match, then that is probably enough to really convince people that Mississippi State deserves probably a spot in the NCAA tournament. Jumping over to Sunday, we have a nationally televised game on Sunday. Number 11 Georgia Tech at number 2 Louisville. This will be on ESPN. And boy howdy, I am so excited for this matchup. I cannot wait for this. This is really going to test Georgia Tech. This is a rematch of last year's Elite 8 matchup between the Yellow Jackets and the Cardinals. Julia Bergman is a stud player, but can she get the help that she needs in order to will the team to victory? Louisville altogether is so amazing, led by Claire Chaussee and Anna, well, not Anna Stevenson, but you get the point. Anna DeBeer, that's her name. And I'm thinking of last year, but Anna DeBeer is also a stud player for Louisville. I really think that that's going to be a great ACC matchup. If Louisville wins this, I wouldn't be surprised. If Georgia Tech wins, I also wouldn't be surprised. However, I think Georgia Tech does have a little bit of that it factor. They have kind of had that little slippery slope where they've had their ups and downs. But I think this is kind of a game where they know they need to come up big just because Louisville is kind of their final boss in the ACC. Well, I wouldn't call him the final boss, but I just call him a big boss. Also on ESPN, following the Georgia Tech-Louisville matchup, is number 1 Texas at Texas Tech. This is kind of a sneaky good game to me. This is at best sneaky good. I really don't think Texas Tech is going to beat Texas. Texas has so much firepower, but I wouldn't doubt those Red Raiders. Shout out to Larry B. But don't question or don't count out the Red Raiders. I think they're a solid team. I don't think they're a bad team. I think they have potential in the Big 12. I just think Texas has so much firepower that they're probably going to win this one a little convincingly. And it's not like Texas is going to go from here to the state of Kansas. They're basically still going to be in the state of Texas, and they're basically going to have I wouldn't say a little barn burner, but I just think they're going to have their way over Texas Tech. If Texas Tech takes a set off of Texas, I think they definitely are the real deal. Last year, I remember Texas Tech beat Baylor, but this year is a whole different Texas team. This is a Texas team that looks super duper good, and they have so much firepower. It's not even funny, dude. So don't be surprised if Texas wins this matchup, but I just hope Texas Tech can make it they can make it competitive. So that is that for the matchups to watch for this week, courtesy of the AVCA. Let's jump on into the Q&A session of this show. Unfortunately, we have 2 questions. One question did come in as Mike Pat said, if you're still doing your Q&A, my question would be, what made you fall in love with the sport of volleyball so much? So I kind of get this question quite a bit. The high school that I went to was obviously Newport Harbor. It is home of 2 very talented volleyball players, Misty May Traynor and April Ross, both of which are gold medalists. Misty May is obviously a living legend, currently residing in Long Beach. Well, April Ross, I don't know if she's playing anymore. She's currently in school at Concordia University, Irvine, as she's going to try to get her degree in coaching. But for April, I don't know if her coaching or her playing career is still intact. But if she does come back, don't be surprised. So I was wondering, I never really knew the sport of volleyball. I had lots of friends that played volleyball, but I never really could grasp the sport of volleyball to start out. So I eventually went to a volleyball match a year after I graduated, and it was when Newport Harbor was playing Mater Dei, back when they weren't the perennial juggernaut, in the semifinals, the CIF Southern Section Division I semifinals. And I tried to ask some of my friends who played volleyball, what's the set format, what's the point you have to get to in order to win the certain set, blah, 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 and basically just had to, explain it to me in the next 5 minutes. And I was still a charlatan at the time when I was wondering about the sport of volleyball. Overall, I had to learn the rules and the tips, the tricks of the trade when it came to volleyball as I progressed when it came to being a volleyball fan. But overall, to answer Mike's question, my high school was what made me fall in love with the game of volleyball so much. I didn't play volleyball back in my day, but having a coach like Dan Glenn, who has sent a whole lot of kids to the collegiate level, who has sent, and overall, not just as athletes, but as students as well. He's turned boys into men, girls into women, and everyone says he is a harsh coach and he's mean. Well, let me just tell you that this dude is a living legend. Dan Glenn, I think, is the reason why I like the sport of volleyball so much, just because I love his coaching style, and even though he can be harsh, it just goes to show that you have to have that tough love, just because in the real world, nothing is going to be given to you for free. Nothing is going to come easy when it comes to the real world. So I want to say Dan Glenn, the Newport Harbor, or the former Newport Harbor boys and girls volleyball coach, is one of the reasons why I love the sport of volleyball so much. And then the other question that I got on Twitter was from Daryl Trujillo, the one that recommended Taylor Kushner to me as a guest. He says, my high school top 10 with 2 weeks left in the regular season, and he wants me to predict all 9 CIF Southern Section Division champions in each division, ranging from Division 1 all the way to Division 9. And they also wanted me to talk a little about junior college when it came to the Orange Empire Conference and South Coast Conference. So I already talked a little about the IEAC with, I want to say that's the Inland Empire Athletic Conference. I already talked about that with Taylor Kushner, and she kind of already explained it. But Orange Empire Conference, I feel that's going to be Irvine Valley's to lose. If it's not going to be Irvine Valley winning that conference, it's going to be Cypress. I don't know if there's any other team that could challenge the Chargers or the Lasers, but I just think Cypress and Irvine Valley are your two teams that are going to vie for winning the Orange Empire Conference. And then the South Coast Conference, I don't know too much about this a whole lot, I'm going to be honest. I feel El Camino is one of those top teams. I don't know if Grossmont's in their league. I know Grossmont always has a good team, or LA Pierce is doing good. I just think El Camino could probably win the South Coast Conference. Again, I don't really talk too much 3C2A women's volleyball, so in case you're wondering what is Teran babbling about, that's you could look at Daryl Trujillo. And then he wants me to predict the champions of each division in the CIF Southern section. Honestly, I can't do that. First of all, I haven't really followed all the divisions outside of Division 1, 2, and 3. Division 3, I could tell you Alamany could win it, but I think Edison of Huntington Beach could win. Corona Del Mar, I think, is a dark horse to win. Chino Hills looks legit. That's pretty much all I could tell you from Division 3. Division 1 and 2 is still up in the air. I think Division 1 is up for grabs. Mater Dei is really good. Miracosta has kind of been the top dog. Palos Verdes I think is underrated. Huntington Beach, I think, still has a good shot. Marymount is the reigning everything champion. They still have a shot. Sierra Canyon looks really good. So that's kind of my teams that I think can win Division 1. Division 2, it all depends on the teams that don't make Division 1. There could be a really good team that should have been in Division 1 that gets left out and that could roll over Division 2. So I can't really predict Division 2. If for purposes of, I guess, I'll try to predict Division 2, I'll just say Newport Harbor wins it. I mean, I've seen Newport Harbor play a whole lot, quite a bit. I saw them last week against Huntington Beach. They wound up beating the Oilers for the first time since 2012, which was kind of the first time I fully got into volleyball in terms of high school. And then I saw them a couple nights ago against Corona Del Mar. It was quite the environment. Newport Harbor eventually came out on top. Like I said, I can't really predict Division 2 all that much just because it all depends on what teams from Division 1 gets left out. So we'll see what happens. But that is that for Daryl's question. Thank you, Daryl Trujillo, for asking that little question, even though I'm not really the best predictor, especially not in AVP. So before we head on out, we got to reflect on the 3-year anniversary of Set Point. So for me, 3 years of Set Point, what that means to me is I'm doing something right. I said this on Twitter in a joking fashion. I'm doing something right. I'm not, driving people away. I'm making more connections. My only thing is I wish more guests I wish more well-known guests would be on my show. I wish NCAA Division I athletes could be on my show. That's how I'm going to grow my show, like some of these other volleyball podcasts and shows. And I understand that having post-game interviews is nice. But at the same time, you kind of want to grow yourself just because anyone could probably get a post-game interview from a coach or a player or any of that sort. Just because technology has evolved, and I feel I'm still a little bit behind. And that's something I really want to change. I really want to have, more well-known guests on my show. My problem is that some of these big-time coaches or players, they kind of thrive in different time zones, except for, the Big West Conference or, USC, UCLA, or anyone that lives in the Pacific Standard Time area. But I digress. So for me, looking back at when I first started out doing Set Point, as a little bit of a, I would say as a little bit of a celebration of when I first did Set Point, we got to go back to when I first did episode 1 of Set Point. So here's a little the former introduction of myself doing episode 1 of Set Point.
Rodriguez.
Oh, wait. Sorry. So let's take it from the top.
What is up, everybody? My name is Teran Rodriguez, and this is the debut of Set Point, hosted by yours truly, Teran Rodriguez, which is me, of course. And good morning, Monday morning to you all. I hope you all had an amazing weekend.
Yeah, that was me back in the day. You could tell how not so confident I was starting out, just because, for those that don't know, I was the co-host of Bases Loaded, our former baseball show on iSports Radio, and then eventually that kind of fell through. And believe it or not, for those that don't know, I actually wasn't supposed to be having my own show in terms of Set Point. I was actually supposed to be one of the co-hosts of Fast Break, as it was originally hosted by Phil Robinson and Phil Jones, the former hosts of The Unfiltered Truth, the Las Vegas Raiders show. but they eventually didn't want to do it, and me and Callum Henderson were supposed to do the show, but Callum unfortunately was busy, and I guess I wasn't, I wouldn't say fully trusted to do the show, to do Fast Break by myself, but eventually, at the time, was still Phil Robinson and Phil Jones still hosting Fast Break, and then they decided to just focus on Unfiltered Truth, and then eventually we got to see Davidson Crookson and Terrius Lonk do Fast Break. So I was still just focusing on Set Point, and I have to give a shout out to Larry B. He basically said, well, how about this? You're so big on volleyball, why not do a volleyball show? And I'm like, okay, fine. At first, I was a little hesitant of it, but it's like, all right, let's do it. Let's be unique. Because at the time, Sports Radio was just focusing more on sports than it was on, like, certain regions of like, certain cities and certain regions of the United States. So, overall, it was at first tough just because I couldn't really find a perfect time to go on. I did the show at like 11 a.m. my time, which everyone at the time was at work or was at school. So I couldn't really find a good time, and I was very amateuristic when I first did Set Point just because I had Set Point on weekends as well, which was definitely not smart. First of all, why do I need to do Set Point on a weekend? Second of all, why do I need to do Set Point twice in 1 week? Unless I'm doing like a interview, and then we just have that as a Set Point extra. But either way, I was not the smartest podcaster back in the good old days, but I eventually had to learn. I eventually had to learn from my mistakes, and I eventually had to get critiqued, and at first I didn't have too many listeners just because volleyball is not everyone's first sport. I'm just going to get that out of the way right now. Volleyball is never anyone's true first sport unless they grew up playing the game, because everyone here likes football, basketball, baseball, hockey, the mainstream sports. Volleyball isn't really a mainstream sport, as ESPN has kind of demonstrated, but eventually, volleyball does grow very fast not only in terms of youth, but in terms of general sports altogether. So, like I said, at first it was tough just because I didn't have too many listeners. Nobody would really listen, and it was just heartbreaking. And I don't think a whole lot of people know this. I actually wanted to stop doing Set Point when I was still in college. This was before the pandemic hit. This was like in January. It's like, well, what's the point of doing the show when no one's going to listen? And it's like, at the time, before I did Set Point, I was also the co-host of Defining Moment and 3 and Out College Edition with Larry B. Larry was so busy, poor guy, we couldn't really do Defining Moment and 3 and Out College Edition together. And he eventually wanted to give me my own show, Set Point, and that's kind of how I got into Set Point. But like I said, at first it was just so tough because I really just wanted to quit, and it's like, are people going to really miss me considering no one listens to this show? Do people really think a volleyball show truly matters? That was kind of my little thing, and it's kind of like quitting a sport just because everything just gets overwhelming. Eventually, I just pulled myself together, and I just said, you know what, I'm going to continue to tough it out, and hopefully I'll get more people to listen in, whether it's my friends or my family or anyone else. And eventually I found my mojo. I was eventually able to get myself together, pick myself up. But then the pandemic hit, and I had two options. Forget about doing Set Point just because every sport was basically postponed or canceled for the moment, or just continue to find ways to do Set Point during the pandemic. I chose the option number 2, continue to do Set Point, and I think it was the wisest decision ever, because I basically went through the entire pandemic without missing a show. And the last time I missed an episode of Set Point was March 3rd, 2020. That was because I had so much work to do back when I was at Long Beach State, back when I was a student at Long Beach State, and I just did not have the time to do Set Point. I just could not do Set Point. And I basically told Larry B, I can't do Set Point. I'm sorry. I'm just super busy. I'll have to look for next week. And eventually I just went for there. I have not missed a week of Set Point ever since. Now, for those of you that don't know, Set Point is kind of my baby. It's kind of what I'm more known for. I mean, I obviously have another show in the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, but I just am more passionate for Set Point just because my friends listen to Set Point. My friends that are not only volleyball fans, but some volleyball parents, they listen to Set Point. They've told me I've done a good job, and they've heard some of my interviews. The NVA has kind of heard some of my episodes when I talk about the NVA. And having Set Point has really just taught me to, value my show more. Granted, I need to do a better job with that in terms of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, but Set Point, I really want to have the best volleyball show on planet Earth. Some of my teammates at iSports Radio, they say Set Point is the best volleyball show on the planet, but I still think I have a lot of things I need to work on, and I really want to be the best just because I really want people to recognize my talents and how much time I put into this, just because it's never easy, just because I cover a lot of high school sports. I obviously have a life, and for those that don't know, I don't get paid to do this whole podcast thing. This is just for fun, and I would not have it any other way. I really want Set Point to be a household name, not just for volleyball fans, but for sports fans in general. I really think that Set Point is starting to take off. I really need to improve it more and more by the week, just because I think Set Point, it has its potential. It just needs to get out there more. I've been trying to shoot my shot when it comes to all these other big-time schools and big-time guests, but unfortunately, I've kind of hit the air ball. But I'm certain I'm going to be out there in terms of one of the top volleyball shows out there, whether it's podcast form or in show form in general. And while volleyball isn't really the first sport of everyone, I'm going to try to make every Set Point everyone's first sport. And I'm trying to find ways to improve Set Point. I'm trying to find ways to take out my stuttering. I'm trying to find ways to go in depth when it comes to matches instead of just reading off the box score. I'm trying to basically get my name out a whole lot more. I have a link tree. I would have never imagined myself getting a link tree account for Set Point. Soon, I hope to get TikTok as well. I don't know how to use TikTok. I'm sorry. I'm not that tech savvy with TikTok, but overall, I will learn it if it means Set Point having to have more success. And also, I'm still hopeful I win the Grant Berger Media Award for 2021-2022. But on that note, it is high time we drop the beat, because I'm about to dip like a banana in chocolate. You feel me? Thank you everyone for tuning in to Set Point, the 3rd year anniversary of Set Point. I really do appreciate everybody tuning in. If you listen live, I appreciate you. If you listen on the playback, I appreciate you. If you listen at work, I appreciate you. If you listen at any time, any place, anywhere, I really do appreciate you. Thank you once again to my guest, Taylor Kushner of Chaffey Women's Volleyball. Thank you for being a guest, Taylor Kushner. It really means a lot. Also, shout out to Daryl Trujillo for recommending her. It really means a lot. Also have to give a shout out to the live chat room, David the Crooks, Mike Pat, and Larry B. Really do appreciate y'all tuning in. Thank you to Larry B for taking a chance on me when it comes to Set Point. It really means a lot, and I'm glad you were able to take a chance with me. This weekend, I will be at Long Beach State for the Long Beach State Hawaii matchup. It's going to be a barn burner. I'm hoping it's going to be a 5-setter. I hope there's a lot of fans there, whether it's Hawaii or Long Beach. Either way, catch me at the Long Beach State Women's Volleyball match against Hawaii this Saturday. I'll be providing you updates and posting interviews and all things volleyball. For everyone here at iSports Radio and for my guest, Taylor Kushner, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. Have yourself an amazing weekend. Enjoy the volleyball action. Set Point will be back on Monday. Just remember that. Take care of yourselves. Be good people. Don't get yourself on Dum Dum of the Week. I will see you on Monday for Set Point and on Saturday for the Long Beach State Women's Volleyball match against Hawaii. Until then, take care, everybody. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you this Saturday. Come say hi to me. Peace!